This happened when I was 15 years old and a sophomore in high school. I was hanging out with a couple of friends before school started. We were just standing around talking about dumb stuff that 15-year-olds do. Soon, the warning bell rang and we had to go our separate ways to attend our classes. I took my time heading to my class because my teacher, Coach Thompson, was pretty laid back and didn't mind if I was a bit late. He usually started class a few minutes late anyways because he was also a sports coach and was always busy with that stuff. As I made my way to class, the school bell rang again. School was now starting and I would be late, but I didn't think much of it and kept walking. The hallways were now empty. The intercom came back on and there was an announcement that the school was going under a lockdown. I couldn't understand why. I was pretty confused. Everything seemed fine to me. I kept walking towards my classroom, thinking it might be a false alarm or a drill. When I entered the hallway where my classroom was located, I stopped and froze. At the far end of the hallway, there was a large man wearing a ski mask and all black. He also had combat boots on and a huge black duffel bag around his shoulder. It took me a few seconds to process what was happening. The man in the ski mask hadn't noticed me yet, but then he turned his head and looked in my direction. I quickly ducked back around the corner, scared out of my mind. He had been standing right where my classroom was, so I couldn't go there now. The hallways were completely empty, and I started to panic. I knew the school pretty well, as I'd been there plenty of times prior to my sophomore year, so I went to the nearest place I knew, which was a nearby bathroom. I was hoping to stay safe in there until everything was over. I sat in a bathroom stall, trying to listen for any sounds, praying that the man wouldn't come inside. During the time in there, I was terrified, and I didn't dare make a noise. I stayed in the bathroom, trying to calm myself down from hyperventilating. For maybe around 30 minutes, I was in there. It was completely quiet, and I couldn't hear much. But at one point, I did hear footsteps, and it really freaked me out. I really don't know who it was, but luckily they moved past where I was, and then things went back to being silent. I just hoped whoever that guy I had seen was would not enter the bathroom. Finally, I decided that I would leave. I hadn't heard anything in the longest time. I thought it might be safer to get out of there, and I stepped out. When I did, I noticed the hallways were still empty and quiet. The lockdown was still in effect, and I had no idea what was happening. I cautiously started speed walking back towards my classroom, and I was very careful, looking all around. I had made it about halfway back when I suddenly heard a noise that made me freeze. It was the sound of footsteps getting closer from the next hallway around the corner. It was happening all over again. I could feel the sinking feeling of the fear and the shock once more. I quickly turned around and went back down another hallway, trying to avoid whoever was coming my way. I glanced back for a split second and saw the man in the ski mask starting to come around the corner. In this point in time, I swear I could have ran a 4.3 flat in the 40-yard dash. For once in my life, I was genuinely running for my life, and nothing else mattered besides that. It was a weird feeling. I didn't care about anything, not girls I had crushes on, not my homework, not even my job. All I cared about was staying alive for myself. I kept on running. Eventually, I stopped, unable to hear the man behind me anymore. I gathered myself and started walking towards the exit, hoping to find a way out. When I reached the exit, relief flooded over me as I saw multiple police officers outside the school. I ran for the door, and when they saw me, they waved me over. I was able to leave and breathe a sigh of relief. The man inside the school was later caught, but we never found out what his intentions were. The memory of that day haunted me, and my parents ended up putting me in therapy to help me out. No 15-year-old or anybody should have to experience anything like that. It's been about 7 years now, and I'm way better. We returned to our normal routines at school shortly after, and our school had a 24-hour cop for the next year. That made everyone feel a lot safer. I'm happy nobody got hurt and I was able to make it out alive. I wouldn't wish that experience upon my worst enemy.